Hello and welcome to Court Watch with Jason Kotowski. I'm Jose Franco. In this program, Jason and I take a look at the stories that are making waves across Kern County based on viewership on 17 News and based on what you're reading on KGT.com. We bring in Jason now to start taking a look at these cases that have made gotten lots of attention on KGT.com. Jason, I want to start with a story that is a case that's horrified many people in Kern County and turns out across the state, where last week we learned a 10-year-old girl from Taft was reported missing and a Sacramento County man was placed under arrest for allegedly kidnapping her. The girl was located Sunday with the suspect Matthew Naval in Elk Grove, and this is about 270 miles away from Kern County, where she was taken, allegedly taken, I should say. Naval is 27 years old and is booked into jail in Kern County last week. Jason, you were able to learn a little bit more about this case. You were in court, I believe, right? What can you tell us about this case?
Yes, the Kern County Sheriff's Office says that Naval had been communicating with the girl through Roblox and Discord before her alleged abduction. They say that he took her back to Sacramento County and that the two were found together the next day. Now, she's been returned to family and he's been taken into custody. He's being held on $1,350,000 bail on 7 felony counts, and that includes allegations that he engaged in sex acts with her. Now, the next hearing for him is scheduled in June, and a criminal protective order bars him from contacting the alleged victim. His attorney, Mark Anthony Raimondo, has said it's his belief his client has autism and was using Roblox, it's a video game platform, using it to reach out and make a friend, and that this was not a case. Raimondo said in court that there was no kidnapping in this case. He said his client's on the spectrum, and that's the defense basically going forward. As to anything else, it was too early for him to comment. He still has to look through reports, but that's what we were told earlier this week when Naval was arraigned. Right,
and then you mentioned when he was arraigned that he pleaded not guilty to those.
That's correct.
Right,
that's
correct. He's booked in, sent to jail for now in Lerdo. Yes. And I want to mention one thing that happened this week. That this week, 17's Jenny Huss spoke with Naval from jail. Now, we send these kinds of requests all the time to people who are facing trial, send them on the hopes, at least for us, and kind of hoping that if someone wants to give their side of the story, that they're certainly free to do so, right? The law provides that. But, our understanding, you dealing with attorneys and seeing all these types of cases, attorneys prefer that they don't, that their clients don't do this.
Yes, right? Yes. Defense attorneys always prefer that they let that they do the talking for their clients. It can hurt a case when a client does talk and says something that an attorney may say, hey, don't mention that, or let me phrase this way. They definitely prefer, defense attorneys would prefer that their clients not speak with the media.
Right, and this is, I watched a little bit of the interview. If you want to watch the full interview, you can watch it on KGT.com. I'll actually link it to this post that you'll see later. But it was kind of an interesting, he makes the case that, one of the things that I remember hearing him say was that he didn't know that the girl was 10 until he was arrested, which is
correct.
Which stands out. I mean, you're not an attorney, but that seems it puts the attorney, his defense, in a tough spot to have to defend that.
It does. Now, what Naval told 17 News' Jenny Ha, and I've looked at the interview this morning, he said that when he was communicating with her, he was told that she was 18 and about to turn 19. He said that she told him that she looks young for his age, which he said is something that he understands because he's been told that he looks young for his age. And I've seen him in court, and he does appear younger than 27, in my opinion. So that was part of his explanation as to what happened. He said, and he also said that they did not engage in sex acts. He said they held hands, but he said that was it. Right. And again, he was very adamant that he had no idea she was so young. He thought she was 18, about to turn 19.
Right, and there's no need to get into the specifics, but there's a reason why, right, that they would charge, that they have some sort of evidence, right, probably correct. Based on what she told investigators.
It could be based on what she told investigators, based on things that's seen on their phone, because another of the charges is exhibiting harmful material to a minor. So it could be sharing pornographic material to a minor. Now, again, I don't know that. We haven't received court documents yet. They haven't been redacted. But he is charged with 7 felonies, and among those are charges of sex acts with a minor and exhibiting harmful matter to a minor.
A very serious case, and this isn't the first time that we've had, just being here covering these kinds of cases. This isn't the first time that Roblox, has been used or allegedly been used to kind of lure a child, like someone kidnapping them.
Sure,
right?
not in general, and not even in Kern County. We had a case within the past couple years, and the name's escaping me right now, but it was a conviction. Someone used Roblox, met up with an underage girl. He was an adult at the time. I think in his 20s also. And was caught in the backseat of a car with her. And ultimately, if my memory serves correctly, he took a plea deal in that case. But again, Roblox popped up. It's a very popular gaming platform, especially, I've never played it myself, but especially among younger people is my understanding. And that there's a variety of games that you can engage on with the system. And the one that Naval told Jenny Hudd that he was using was called Mic Up. And that's how they were communicating and how he got this information that he says he was told she was an adult like him.
I think there are age restrictions for that specific game mode.
That's what we were told. Yes, that's what he was saying, is that you have to be a certain age to even play that game.
Right, so someone had to have checked the box and then be allowed into that game mode, it sounds like. So, and yeah, there's many, for parents, if you're watching this, there are many types of apps that you can keep track of, or that you can use to keep track of what your children are watching or using, or who they're speaking with, because Discord was also apparently or allegedly used in this crime as well. Is that correct?
That was also brought up. And again, I don't have any further details other than that. I believe at this point all we've received is the probable cause declaration, which was basically 2 sentences, just said a warrant was served and he was arrested. But that's been it at this point.
So there's still lots more to happen in this case, and you said the next hearing is in June.
Yep, next hearing is late June. I believe the preliminary hearing is June 26th. So we'll have an update. If not before then, if some motions are filed, then in late June, definitely we'll have an update. Gotcha,
thank you for that. Now, next thing that we want to talk about here is a sentencing for a man convicted of murder in a deadly shooting in February of 2023. Darius Key was convicted of murder for a shooting on Clifton Street in February. He was convicted this year. And that shooting killed a 27-year-old man and paralyzed another. The two victims and Key are gang members. Jason, what can you tell us about this case where this sentencing is scheduled to happen?
Yes, well, it was scheduled to happen this morning, and we're waiting for an update from the court website has not been updated yet. There was a motion filed to postpone the sentencing hearing. So it's unclear as of right now if the sentencing actually went forward this morning or was postponed, and we'll follow up on that later. But it is a little unusual in that Darius Key is not accused of being the actual shooter in this case. The prosecutors allege that he drove the shooter to that location to target rival gang members. And this shooting took place on Clifton Street again on February 11th, 2023. Killed was Jonathan Lee Crummy, 27, and another man was shot and paralyzed. Both of those men were linked to the East Side Crips, rival gang members to Key and apparently the shooter, who again remains unknown. Now, surveillance video of the incident shows a black sedan park a street over and a passenger get out and walk to the home on Clifton Street where the victims were hanging out. The passenger rounds a corner, fires 4 shots, then hurries back to the car. Another camera grabbed a photo of the car's license plate. Turns out it was registered to Key's mother. Now, Key, when questioned at first, denied being anywhere near Clifton Street when this occurred, but changed his story when police said his mother's car was in the suspect vehicle. He told police he picked up a homeless man who asked for a ride to East Side Crips territory to buy marijuana. He said that's his explanation for going to that territory, because usually he wouldn't go there, it being a rival gang member territory. He said he stayed in the car and listened to music, didn't hear any gunshots, and then the guy came back to the car and drove him away. Now, the jury did not buy that story, and in fact, the prosecutor said that this story of the homeless man doesn't exist. He said that was made up entirely by Key, and that, in fact, he did go there with another gang member to shoot and kill, if possible, other gang members there. So the jury did find him guilty. He's facing a life sentence now. And again, it's unclear if that went forward this morning or if it'll be postponed to another date.
And we'll certainly update that on KGT.com when we find out for certain with the sentencing for this. Now, one thing I was curious about this, that he wasn't the shooter himself, right? That he was a driver?
Yes.
And he's getting a life sentence for that. But I mean, I think there are laws now in California where, someone can appeal, or they don't have to be sentenced for, the ultimate penalty or the ultimate type of sentence if they're not the ones that commit the crime themselves?
That's correct. But also the law says unless they're a major participant. And the argument here is he drove the shooter to that location fully intending that they were going to shoot somebody. They're saying he's just as guilty of murder as the actual shooter because he knew what was going to happen. They planned this and they carried this out, and you have one man dead, another paralyzed. Right.
Okay. And so he's going to get you said up for a life sentence.
Correct.
But they still don't have any idea of the shooter.
Correct. As far as when I was sat in on closing arguments, it was said in court that the shooter remains unknown. His identity remains unknown, his or her.
Their identity, right?
Yeah.
So the actual shooter in that case. Now, thank you for that, Jason. Now let's move on to another case here that also riveted, Kern County for the tragedy that was involved in this case. This next case here is a case where of the deadly crash on South Vineland that claimed the life of one person, seriously injured a woman as they were driving back home from or driving to work, I believe it was.
Actually, they were leaving work. It was very. I think it was the late shift. They got off and they were heading home.
Right. But now we're going to talk about the second man that was sentenced in this, right? The person who was being chased by police. Now,
yes.
This is a case where a driver who police were chasing when a BPD officer slammed into a different car, killing a man, leaving that woman seriously hurt. The man was sentenced, right? Back in January 19, 2023, Michael Stevens Jr. was spotted in a stolen vehicle. Police gave chase to Stevens. Stevens at one point lost police, but officers picked up that chase again south of Bakersfield. One Bakersfield police officer tried to catch up to that pursuit on South Vineland Road, but he ran a stop sign at high speeds and crashed into that vehicle carrying Mario Laris. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mario Laris, and killed him and seriously injured a woman. This crash happened at the intersection of South Vineland and Muller Road. And Stevens was sentenced for his participation in this case. What can you tell us about this case? Because it was interesting that that we know that the officer involved, the officer who was driving, Robles, I forget his first name.
Officer Ricardo Robles.
Ricardo Robles got we might say a lighter sentence, a sentence that that we've heard from people commenting on on social media posts about this, saying that justice may not be fully served here, but Stevens is getting a stiffer sentence.
Yes, Robles was sentenced to 2 years probation and 500 hours of community service, plus restitution in an amount to be determined to victim's family. Now, he is no longer a police officer. He left the force long before his case was settled. And you're correct in that his sentence was far lighter than what Stevens is getting. Now, people want to know why. The reason for that is the best that I can figure is that Stevens' actions are what sparked this chase and ultimately led to this crash. Plus, Stevens has a prior criminal record. Robles does not. And the argument can be made, and in fact, David Torres said in court that his client was trying to assist with the chase, was trying to do his job when this crash occurred. But Robles drove far beyond the speed limit and ignored traffic laws. The BPD has made it clear that you can't just blow through stop signs and red lights during a chase, and that's what Robles did. He at one point was traveling over 90 miles per hour and had slowed down to I think about 70 miles per hour just before he went through the stop sign and smashed into the other vehicle. So he took a plea deal for vehicular manslaughter and was given the probation terms and the community service. Now, Michael Monte Stevens pled to vehicular manslaughter, but also vehicle theft. So he was sentenced to 4 years for the manslaughter charge, plus 8 months to be served consecutive for the vehicle theft. So again, a much stiffer sentence, plus he must also pay restitution. An amount has not been determined yet, but restitution to the victims' families.
Right, so that argument won out, right? Of course, the police officer is doing his job, trying to assist, to catch up to that chase.
Yes.
In pursuit of a dangerous person, right? The argument is, right? And Stevens, is the, I guess, instigator and what prompted all of this. That's the argument that weighs the most in this?
Correct, he prompted it, and ultimately, it's what led to this. If Stevens doesn't steal that vehicle, or if he's caught with that vehicle and just pulls over and, hey, you're busted for vehicle theft, instead of leading them on that chase, Robles never takes off like he does. But it has been acknowledged that Robles, he not only sped, but he didn't turn on his overhead lights or siren as this was going on. again, against BPD policy.
Help me out on this one. The police department is facing civil litigation in this?
That's correct. Attorney Daniel Rodriguez has filed a lawsuit on behalf of both families. On behalf of Ana Hernandez, she was the driver that was injured and very seriously injured in this crash, and on behalf of the family of Mario Lares. And that is scheduled for trial later this year. There could be postponements, but last I checked, which was during this week, in fact, it was right after the sentencing hearing yesterday for Stevens. It's scheduled for late 2025 to go to trial.
I see. Okay. Again, another case that's taking twists and turns that we're following here in KGT at 17 News, KGT.com. Now, next case here, we want to take a look at a case that finally took another step. Nearly a year after the death of a Bakersfield woman, Maggie Lopez, inside her home, the man who had allegedly shot her was placed under arrest. 17's Cecilia Trevino has the first part of this story.
It's been a tough year for the sisters of Margarita Maggie Lopez, who went nearly a year without answers for her sister's murder, shot and killed by Paul Magallanes, her husband's brother. Maggie's younger sister, Sandy Camarena, witnessed it all.
I'm a survivor from all of that. It hasn't been easy. Every day, it's been a struggle for me. Internally, it's been a battle to get up every single day.
Magallanes was arrested Tuesday afternoon on Laverne Avenue in Southwest Bakersfield and charged with first-degree murder. For 361 days, no arrest was made for Maggie's murder. KGT contacted the district attorney's office to ask for updates on the case. 4 days later, Magallanes was arrested. Maggie was killed at Magallanes' house, where she previously lived with her family for many years. The year-long wait to see any arrest was despairing for Maggie's family, now estranged from their in-laws.
It's not like we don't know them. You know, my sister was married to her husband 20 plus years. He's not no stranger.
Magallanes was initially arrested the night of the shooting, but was released from custody and had been free since. He was a teacher with the Panama Buena Vista School District. The district says he was placed on leave since his arrest and never came back to campus. His final day with the district was last June, 2 months after his arrest. Though nothing can bring back Maggie, the arrest of Magallanes brings some peace to the family, especially Maggie's mom.
We want my mom to be somewhat at peace. She'll never be okay, but at least her knowing that he's finally charged and behind bars it's kind of going to bring a bit of closure. She's not here. Justice would have been her here still. So it'll just be a bit of a closure for us.
In Bakersfield, Cecilia Trevino, 17 News.
And so Magallanes was free, and he was being held on no bail when he was arrested. On Thursday, Magallanes was arraigned in court for a hearing, and in part of that hearing included a motion on bail. Jason, there was a wild scene in that during that hearing. You were in the courtroom. What can you tell us what happened there at that time?
Yes, it was very dramatic, and I think surprised a lot of people in that Magallanes' attorney, H.A. Sala, asked for $200,000 bail for Magallanes. Now, typically in a murder case, it's either no bail or it's something like $1 million bail. He asked for $200,000, his argument being that over the past year, as this investigation has gone on, Magallanes hasn't gotten in trouble and that he didn't flee. He knew this investigation was ongoing. He knew that he could face charges, potentially a murder charge, which carries a life term, and yet he stayed in the county and committed no crimes. It's only an allegation against him now for this one.
Right.
So he made that argument to the judge. The prosecution asked for no bail. They said he poses a danger, and that he shot Maggie Lopez over an argument. It was a family argument. Maggie Lopez is his sister-in-law, and that he pulled a gun and shot her at point-blank range. They said he's clearly a risk. He should be held without bail. Judge Gloria Cannon found in Sala's favor. She found that $200,000 was appropriate, given that Sala agreed that his client would be on GPS monitoring, subject to supervision terms, and can't go near the alleged victim's family or or possess any weapons, possess any guns. So given those terms, Gloria Cannon gave him $200,000 bail. Paul Magallanes posted it later that day and was released from custody.
And, and I just wanted to get to today, right? There was another hearing for this case where request to raise bail or to reinstate bail for this?
Actually, it was just yesterday,
Oh,
and we got an update today in that the DA's office filed a motion to increase bail, again asking for no bail, giving their reasons and giving a detailed description of what happened that day and the shooting and how she was shot at point blank range. And in the documents, they say this argument occurred because Paul Magallanes was drinking with his brother. Maggie Lopez goes over and asks for the brother, who's her husband. She says, hey, it's time to come home, come home. And that infuriated Paul Magallanes. They argue, then there's a physical fight. Apparently multiple people try to intervene, and during it, Paul Magallanes, according to the document, pulls a gun and shoots her in the chest at point blank range. So they're saying he's dangerous, he fired this gun in front of multiple witnesses, he should be held without bail. And Sala, again, in his response to this motion, said that his client, again, has stayed out of trouble, didn't flee, and he said since granted bail and released on the first-degree murder charge, 5 days had passed, and he again didn't try to flee, even knowing that he's facing first-degree murder charge and a possible life sentence if convicted.
Right, and I don't want to make light of this, but in this kind of case, it really depends on what kind of defense attorney you can have. Is that right? Like, if they're credible enough, if they have this kind of experience, they can make the case for you that you are not a danger, that you can, that the bail, that Magallanes is free.
Correct.
Right? He's free on bail awaiting trial.
Correct.
But, defense attorney can really make a difference in this, making that argument for them?
Absolutely. In my experience, it's pretty rare to have someone charged with murder and be released on bail. But Sala made an argument that was persuasive to the judge in this case. And she examined it and decided that, you're right, he hasn't harmed anyone since this incident took place. There have been no other causes for concern. And that's what Sala said, is the prosecution's failing to show how he poses a danger considering a year has passed and nothing has happened.
Right.
And so she took that into consideration. And one thing I do want to point out too at the arraignment, again, very dramatic, is that the mother of Maggie Lopez, when she heard that he was granted bail, she passed out in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was, we could hear a commotion behind us, and the judge was still talking. I don't think she realized either what was going on at that moment, but family members of Maggie Lopez stood up and called for help, and I looked behind me and you could see Maggie Lopez's mother kind of slumping toward the ground. So the courtroom was cleared after the arraignment, and a gurney was brought and she was removed. It's my understanding that she's doing okay now, but it was a shocking moment for her, I guess, just to hear that he was going to be released, and kind of overwhelming to her.
Extremely disappointing for the family because it's been a year, right? It's
Correct.
been a year that the case was sent back to the sheriff's office for further investigation. I guess what kinds of things can, I don't want to say delay, but what kinds of things can leave this kind of case where the family's saying it's open and shut, where they say clearly deliberate, the evidence will show this, a murder, right? What sorts of things would, delay this kind of charge against him?
When that was brought up, when Salas mentioned that this took a year and for them to finally charge my client and nothing's happened, prosecutor Eric Smith was in the courtroom, and he said, the reason this took so long is because we conducted a very thorough and complete investigation, re-interviewed a bunch of witnesses, gathered more evidence, basically saying that we want to make sure we were on very solid grounds before filing the first-degree murder charge. Now, as to what some of that other evidence is or to what those witnesses said, we don't have the reports yet. All we have is the motions that have been filed to increase the bail and Sala's reply, which give an explanation as to what happened, but don't include quotes from witnesses or other evidence that was recovered. Now, one thing that is said, that prosecutors do say too, is that they were told earlier in the day, Paul Magallanes fought with a nephew and apparently got in a fist fight and afterwards fired a shotgun in the air. So they said when he allegedly shot Maggie Lopez, that was not the first time he fired a gun that day. And they're saying that's another reason why he should be held, is because he's engaging in this risky, very dangerous behavior.
Gotcha. Okay. And so this is a case again that gained a lot of interest, of course. We are hearing from family about this. 17 Cecilia Trevino is following this, and you are following this case as well.
That's
throughout.
correct.
And
That's
the next hearing is when again?
Oh, I believe I think this one also is a couple months from now. Or excuse me, no, end of May. That's correct. End of May, there's a preliminary hearing scheduled. I wouldn't be surprised, though, considering that the reports haven't even been released yet, and I don't know what the attorneys have even examined yet, what the defense has had an opportunity to examine yet. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets postponed.
I got you. Okay, Jason, thank you so much for that. And that'll do it for this edition of Court Watch with Jason Kotowski. For more on this, on these cases and other stories, you can please visit kgt.com. Thank you for watching.